Hi, everybody, and welcome to the final video, recapping the GM and IM Norm Invitational in Charlotte. So in this last round, we had two players that were playing for Norms in our GM group, zero players playing for Norms in the IM group. Um, and both players in the GM group needed a win. Both had 5.5 out of 8 and needed to win their final game to get a Norm, and both were able to achieve that. So big congratulations to International Master Andrew Tang and International Master Raja Banjwani. Um, I am Tang achieved his third and final Norm, and he already has 2,500 rating, so he'll get the GM title as soon as everything's processed. So big congratulations to him. Um, Very happy to have that happen at the Charlotte Chess Center, and then International Master Panjwani, he had his second Norm, so he'll still need one more, but this is definitely a big step for him to becoming a GM. Okay, so without further ado, I know in some of the past videos I've looked at the cross table um, and discussed, who was going to be making norms, but these were the big two results of the final round. Most of the other players were simply playing for ratings, so let's take a look at the two games that gave the players their norms. So Andrew Tang was playing black against International Master Bryce Tiglon. The game was, Bishop b5, very common third move here. a6. Following some opening theory here, black declines to take on e4. Could be just fatal. Rook e1, b5, bishop c2, bishop g7. Now white hopes to bring this knight from f1 to e3 or g3. Also, moving the knight is critical to allow this dark squared bishop to develop. Um, Black decides to capture, and white recaptures with knight. Now, if pawn takes, the move bishop g4 will follow, and it'll be quite difficult to, deal with the pressure on the central pawn. So knight takes, rook e8, attacking this e4 pawn. And then here, this somewhat struck me as strange. I don't know. I don't play this opening from either side, but it seems to me like the move f3 is going to have to be played anyways. It did happen in the game, and that h3 would perhaps be out of place considering the fact f3 will be played, just weakening a lot of dark squares. Um, Maybe at this point, the thought was that f4 might eventually be played, um, but I'm not sure. Looks like f4 might be hard to get in with this weak e4 pawn if you go f4. Of course, like I said, I don't know this position very well. Um, so knight e5, knight comes to e2, hoping to cover maybe some of these squares. f4 g3, reroute the knight maybe. Bishop c6, putting more pressure on the pawn, and now white is forced to play f3. Knight h5, just sort of aiming at the g3 and f4 squares, also opening up this bishop on the long diagonal. Bishop b3, improving the scope of the bishop, putting a little pressure on f7. Okay, and bishop comes back to d7. Well, I guess with some tactical ideas. Maybe if white does nothing, is this possible? Oh no, because f4 in between. Okay. Um, yeah, just rerouting the bishop then. So knight f4, knight takes, bishop takes, a5, a3, bishop e6, trying to exchange off this bishop on b3. White plays the critical mistake of the game, knight e3, allowing for bishop takes b3, queen takes b3, and the move knight d3, forking the bishop and the rook. And then here, white simply resigned, not wanting to play in an exchange down game after knight takes e1. Certainly fair enough. And so with this game, Andrew Tang was able to get his final norm. Again, congratulations to him. Okay, now on to the game, Panjwani against Lee. Okay, so this game, a little bit longer, is a King's Indian defense. I've covered like a lot of those this tournament. It's been fun to watch. Bishop e2, classical moves. Knight d7. Knight may be coming to c5 at some point. So knight g4, bishop g5, f6, knight h6. Another option here I think is h5. Yeah, followed by like g5, knight h6, and f5. Okay, but he went for knight h6, knight d2, queen e7, f3, knight f7, f3, important move, support e4 and give this bishop some squares. Maybe preparing the move g4 if white's going to play for a kingside attack. Queen c2. This move to me sort of signals that white's going to be castling queenside and pushing pawns on the king side. Black plays the move bishop h6, improving the bishop from the square g7. Bishop f2 is played. a5, trying to get some sort of queenside pressure with this move, also preventing the move pawn to b4. And white castles queenside. So up to this point, it may have seemed like black was going to be the one playing f5, f4, and attacking the king on the king side, but white held off on castling for long enough that the position was unclear, and maybe black didn't want to continue with such a plan until the position was clarified. So now that this move a5 is played, the a6, b5 option is no longer available, and it will be somewhat difficult for black to open up files and attack on the queen side. Knight c5, king b1, always a good move to play when you castle queenside. Also unpinning this knight, h4, trying to go h5 and attack on the king side. King g7, so that if h5 is played, you know there's no discovered attack on the bishop. Knight f1, like I said before, king b1 was maybe preparing some sort of knight move. And knight comes to f1, probably coming to e3, or maybe even g3 if g4 is played. Rook c8. Okay, black's considering the move c6 and opening up the c file. Knight e3, queen e8. Perhaps preparing the push a4. Not too sure though. Knight g4. So this was the whole idea, I think, of this movement of the knight. And white says, you know, I'm happy to exchange this bishop for the knight and open up the f file. Takes. Queen d7. Rook h3. Rook h8. So seems to me like black is somewhat looking for white to make some forcing moves and change the position while he's comfortable with the his position for now. Rook f1. But perhaps black should be trying to do something active. It's difficult to come up with a good plan though. c6 maybe. I don't know. Let's turn on engine. Okay, no, it says rook a f8. He played rook h f8. Bishop d1. Okay, it says b6. Certainly could be a move to solidify some squares, but maybe you don't want to give up c6 if a knight can somehow get there. Anyways, knight h8, rook h1, king g8. Okay, finally bringing the bishop back. Bishop d3, rook f7, And then the move g5, sacrificing a pawn. Queen d1. Okay, Engine doesn't like this very much, but when you're attacking a king, you want open files, and clearly Panjwani wanted this position. Queen e7. Bishop takes knight, removing a somewhat annoying knight that was on c5. Bishop g4 coming to e6. Knight blocks. King goes to h8, getting out of the pin. So now knight can come to d6. Another pleasant square for the knight, controlling lots of squares from d6. Queen e2. a4. White wants to prevent b5, so that maybe he can move his queen. Bishop e7, b3, g5, and now white goes g4, bringing the queen to h2 with a lot of threats. Specifically, this e5 pawn is quite weak. Queen e8, queen h2, b5, lashing out here with not too many active plans. Takes. And now rook h3. Attacking h7. Preparing moves like rook h1 even, or queen takes e5. No good way for black to stop queen takes e5. So queen g6 is played, rook h6, and then black resigned in light of something like queen e8, rook takes h7, rook takes h7, queen takes... Oh, whoops. This is going to lead to mate. Okay, so good game by Panjwani. He shut down white's or black's queenside play and launched a pretty effective attack on the king. Took his time with it. Quite impressive. So congratulations to both players, and thank you for tuning in. Look forward to making some other videos for the Chess Center. Yeah, have a great rest of your day.